My husband lied to his family saying that the huge home that I paid for was actually under his legal name. My voice trailed off, the memory of those awful days still fresh in my mind. To be honest, James and I both had good jobs and were earning a lot of money, but his parents never acknowledged that. They thought I was a gold digger who mooched off their son. That was partly James's fault. He always said, "Meena is very lucky to marry me. She does have the desire to lead a luxurious life. She couldn't have done that without my help, of course." You know what, Mom and Dad? I showed them most of the finances of our house. My name is Meena. I'm now a single lady, but once upon a time I was married to a horrible guy named James. His parents, Shane and Irina, were equally bad, and the two of them regularly made me feel like... A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "James, what are you saying? Oh, James, you are such a generous guy. Any woman would be lucky to have you. Meena, you better take care of my son properly. If he leaves you, you'll be left with nothing. Yeah, thank God we made you sign a prenup before marriage. We knew Meena wouldn't amount to anything, so we thought we should protect our son." Yes, his parents made us sign a prenup. Look, I don't have a problem with prenups. I was just mad at the fact that James didn't even discuss this with me. He always told his parents that I earned way less than him and depended on him for everything, so they assumed I was a gold digger. James always told me to go with his lies because his family would look down on him if they found out that I earned more than him. I loved James and didn't want him to feel humiliated, so I put up with the insults. I was a freaking idiot for marrying James. That man didn't love me and didn't have any respect for me. He regularly humiliated me for earning less than him and spending all his money. All of them were lies. He was fired from his job a year ago and was dependent on me, but he didn't want his parents to find out, of course. James was getting on my nerves and draining my savings. I was getting tired of him not looking for work. The final strike came when I purchased a house. I paused, taking a deep breath. I got some inheritance money from a relative and was building a house fund. I found a great match and went for it. It was a beautiful house and I immediately fell in love. I bought it and put the title in my name only. James protested, but I reminded him that he didn't pay a cent towards the purchase. Still, he wouldn't stop pestering me. What put me over the edge was what he told his parents at a family dinner. My voice dropped to a whisper. We were having a good time until his parents decided to talk about the house. They said, "So I hear that you two have bought a big house. I went to see the house before you guys moved in. It's truly one of a kind. Did you two already move in?" "Yes, Shane, we finalized the deal just a month ago. It's already pretty well made and furnished, so we moved in last week. We're still settling in, but it's nice to finally have a place of our own." "So did you two buy the house jointly? I don't see how your meager salary can buy such a big house, Meena. I guess my son paid most of the money." "No, Mom, you're wrong. I didn't pay most of the money. At this point, I thought that James would rectify his parents' mistake and tell them that the house belonged to me. I expected him to tell them that I was the one who paid in full and owned the house. But what he said next absolutely blew my mind. He said, "Actually, I paid for the entire house. My job has been going so well that I could save up a lot of money, so I thought I might as well buy a house in my name. See, I knew it. My son is so successful that he bought a huge house all by himself. God, I'm so happy for you, James. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you, son. It must have been a huge feat to buy your own house. You have reached the peak of success, my son. I'm so happy for you." My voice hardened. Irina and Shane kept congratulating James and completely ignoring me. I tried to get James's attention, but he was intentionally avoiding meeting my eye. I was getting pissed by what I witnessed. I controlled my anger because I didn't want to shout at him in front of his parents. However, as soon as we left, I said, "What the hell was that, James? Why did you tell your parents that you bought the house all by yourself when you didn't spend a penny on it?" "Relax, Meena. I told them to make them a little happy. I don't want them to suspect that I lost my job. They'd be extremely disappointed. What else was I supposed to do? You could have said that we went 50-50 on the house, but no, you took all the credit for buying the house. I feel humiliated and cheated, James. This is very unfair. Look, what's done is done. I'm not going to go back and correct myself. I won't humiliate myself like that. Who cares what my parents think? Let them be." So he had no problem humiliating me, but he wouldn't do that to himself for the truth. That day, I realized something. James had completely changed after our marriage. He no longer cared about me or my feelings. He was mooching off me for the last year and wasn't showing any signs of getting a job again. I was getting tired of shouldering all the family expenses. He was even fighting with me to put his name on the house title as well. Somewhere in my mind, I could understand that he was using me. Still, I was on the fence about what to do. That was until something more drastic happened. I took another deep breath, the memory of that night still causing a tremor in my voice. The next evening, I was making myself a snack when suddenly I heard the doorbell ring. I was curious to see who was visiting because there was a lot of commotion at the door. James hurried downstairs and opened the door with a look of uneasiness. I was shocked to see his parents at the door with all their stuff. His parents were smiling and laughing with James while they brought their things inside. Before I could ask what was going on, I heard them say, "James, we got all our stuff here. We packed our things as soon as you told us that we could stay here. You are the best son ever, James. We knew we raised you right. When you told us to come stay at your new house, I told all of my friends what a great son you are. We're so proud of you." "I'm glad to make you proud, Mom and Dad. It's nothing. You guys were right. You need to stay with us since I bought such a big house with plenty of room to house you for free," James replied. My voice cracked with a mix of anger and disbelief. My mouth was hanging open as soon as I heard that. In no alternate universe did I ever approve of James allowing his parents to stay in my house. I could see that this house charade had gone too far. Still, I didn't want to confront James in front of his family. There was no way his parents were living in my house, that was for sure. But I was trying to find a way to deal with the situation gently. They continued to make castles in the air. God, it is so nice to finally live in a big house. We were getting cramped up in the old place. I'm so proud of my son for being this successful. This house is truly magnificent. Yeah, he said that this place has 4 bedrooms. Imagine that, Arena. Oh my God, yes! 4 freaking bedrooms. We will take the biggest room out of all of those. It would be my dream come true. Come on now, James. Show us which is the biggest and best room. We can't wait. Why don't you two just wait here while I have a chat with your son? I'm sure he has a lot of explaining to do, I said. James looked panicked when I said that. He started to look at everything except me. He knew that he was in deep trouble. I was already getting very angry at my in-laws' sudden arrival. Their demands for the biggest room also pissed me off beyond imagination. James could tell that this wasn't going to end well for him, so he decided to be a coward and hide behind his parents. He said, "Why do we need to talk in private? Since my parents will stay here from now on, we can just talk in front of them. I don't think it'll be a problem." Are you sure about that, James? Well, I don't mind discussing this in front of your parents if you don't. I have no problem as well, Meena. Go ahead and tell me what you want. You know what I'm going to say, James. Your parents won't be living here. I won't allow this to happen. You didn't even consult me before inviting them over. How do you think this is okay? How dare you say that to my son? This is his house and he can do what he pleases. Yes, he doesn't need your permission to keep us here. Know your place, Meena. You can't just talk to our son like that. You should be careful so that he doesn't kick you out now. Stop being a spoiled brat and show us the biggest room. We can't wait any longer. Take us to our room. Nah, I don't think I'll do that, Arena. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. Arena and Shane were super shocked by my audacity. I didn't know if I should be mad at them or not. Yes, they are super entitled people, but it was James's fault for lying to his parents. If James hadn't lied to them and invited them over, we wouldn't be having this problem. Still, I knew that Arena and Shane were not completely innocent either. They were standing in my house and threatening to have me kicked out. I don't know how I can look past that. They said, "What do you mean, Meena? If you don't show us the room, James will. Our son has promised us that we can have the biggest room. We left our rented apartment because of that. Yes, we came here today because James promised to take care of us. Our son is such a good man that he knows how to take care of his parents. He was the one who invited us over to stay in his new house. That's why we ended our lease early." Well, in that case, you have made a huge mistake, Arena and Shane. I don't think you can stay here at all, let alone get the biggest room. How dare you, Meena? We don't need your permission to stay here. My son will show us our room. If you don't, this house is not yours, so you can't dictate whether we can stay here or not. You have that wrong, Irina. I guess James hasn't told you yet. This house belongs to me and not him, so you won't be getting the biggest room. You will have to do with the streets instead. What? That's impossible. James has told us already that he bought this house. You're telling lies. Is that so, guys? Then why don't you ask James and find out the truth? I'm sure he'll clear everything. Damn right we will, Meena. James, tell your wife that she's being a lying witch right now. Yeah, James, tell her that you own the house. You have said so yourself. Both Shane and Irina expectantly looked at James to tell them what they wanted to hear. Again, I don't blame them because it was James who lied to his parents. James was looking down at his feet and not saying anything. Slowly, it dawned on his parents that there was a possibility I was speaking the truth. They still couldn't believe it completely. I mean, all this while they thought that I was a gold digger with a bad job and that their son was a hardworking and successful man. They said, James, why are you not saying anything? This house belongs to you, right? That's what you told us. Why are you being so quiet, James? Tell her that she can't kick us out. What will he say, guys? He's been lying to you all this while. I can even show you the property papers that say I am the sole owner of this house. That can't be true. You work a simple job and don't have a lot of money. My son has a huge income and can afford this house. There is no way that this house is yours. Correction, Irina. Your son Asterisk had Asterisk a huge income. He also didn't tell you that he had been fired from his job a year ago. Since then, he's been living on my income. And for your information, I have a very good job. Just because I don't show off doesn't mean I'm a poor woman. My voice trembled with barely contained fury. Oh boy, you guys should have seen the expression on Shane and Irina's faces when I revealed the truth. They were dumbstruck by my words. James, as usual, was still watching the floor, refusing to meet his parents' eyes. His parents kept asking him to confirm what I said was the truth. He didn't utter a single word until I said, Okay, that's enough drama for a single day, Shane and Irina. I've entertained you two in my house for long enough. It's time you take your things and leave. Meena, you can't just kick my parents out like that. They broke their lease to come to stay with us. They have nowhere to go right now. Now you can't just put them on the streets. I can and I will, James. They didn't consult me before making these horrible decisions, and you didn't think of taking my input before assuring them a place at my house. Look, this might be your house, but I'm also your husband. If I say my parents will stay here, they will stay here. You can't kick them out. That's right. This is also my son's house right now. Everything that belongs to you also belongs to him, so you can't kick us out. No, Irina, I can kick you out. And don't worry about James because he will be kicked out with you too. Now, James, since you're still married to me, I will make a nice eviction notice for you, and I will make sure you won't stay married for long. What do you mean, Meena? Are you going to divorce me? Yes, my dear husband. I'm going to divorce you. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow and set up an appointment. I'm sure we will be able to serve you by next week. James immediately panicked when I mentioned a divorce. He looked pretty pissed off and acted like I couldn't do that to him or something. His anger also set me off, but I controlled myself. I wouldn't stoop to his level. He said, You can go divorce me, Meena. If you do, I will take half the house and claim alimony from you. How do you plan to do that, James? Have you forgotten the prenup that you and your parents made me sign? Do you want me to remind you what it said? James was now suddenly reminded of the prenup that we had signed before we got married. It clearly said that under no circumstances could we ever claim alimony from each other. It also said that our private assets would stay ours and wouldn't be divided in case of a divorce. Back then, James and his parents made me sign this prenup to protect James. They never imagined that James would end up being the one on the losing side. His parents had so much faith in his ability to succeed that they forgot what fate could do to people. Now they understood the implications of the prenup. Suddenly, their entire demeanor changed. They said, Now we don't have to jump to a divorce right away. We can all sit down and have an adult conversation about this. Yes, Meena, let's just calm down and talk this out. I'm sure we might arrive at a compromise that will be beneficial for everyone. I don't care what would be beneficial to you guys. I refuse to be the cash cow for you, James, and I refuse to let your parents take advantage of me after how badly they treated me. That was in the past, Meena. Many years have passed since then. I'm sure you can look past that now. It was a very minor issue. You and your wife just threatened to have me kicked out because I refused to house you. And that happened just a few minutes ago. There's no use making excuses and being pleasant to me now. You and Irina need to leave before I call the cops. I would prefer if James leaves as well, but if he needs an eviction notice, he will get that soon. James, Shane, and Irina then started to beg me to change my mind. Those two idiots had ended their lease because they wanted to move in with us. James thought that he would somehow convince me to play along like I did in the past. He had no idea that I would stand up against him and stop being a pushover. I was done being the family doormat. Not anymore. They could go to hell for all I care. When I saw that Irina and Shane weren't leaving even after an hour, I decided to call the cops. They came and escorted them out of the house. After Irina and Shane left, James screamed at me for humiliating his parents and kicking them out. I reminded him that he, too, had only a month to vacate my house. That made him switch his behavior to being apologetic and remorseful. The way this family changed their behavior seriously gave me a headache. Thankfully, I didn't have to deal with them for long. From that night onwards, I didn't allow James into my room. He stayed in the guest room until it was time for him to leave. Yes, he was served with an eviction notice, so he had no choice. Meanwhile, his parents, after spending a huge chunk of their savings on a hotel, were forced to find a new place to rent. Surprisingly, they didn't allow James into their new place. James was left scrambling for a place just like his parents were. I guess they wanted James to pay for lying to them and leaving them in a lurch. From what it seems, since then, their relationship has become strained. They blamed each other for their present condition, and now his parents refuse to support James anymore. He was only good for them when he had money. James had to couch surf at his friends until he got a job. I filed for divorce from James. There was no way I was going to stay with him anymore. He disrespected me and revealed himself to be a very vain and selfish man. That was not the person I fell in love with. James tried his best to make me change my mind, but I was firm in my decision. I refused to be taken advantage of anymore. Since we didn't have kids, we got divorced after being separated for 6 months. Only in those 6 months, I built myself back up and have now started to date again. Surprisingly, James is still hoping we can get back together, but that unfortunately will be in his dreams only. Let's conclude the story shortly. The divorce was final, and I was free. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a sense of liberation I hadn't known I craved. I was finally able to breathe again, to live my life on my terms. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but soon found myself enjoying the company of new people and the excitement of new experiences. James, on the other hand, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. His parents, disillusioned and angry, refused to help him, leaving him to fend for himself. He was forced to confront the consequences of his lies and manipulations, the reality of his shortcomings. As for me, I moved on. I built a new life, a life filled with happiness and fulfillment. I learned a valuable lesson, to trust my instincts and never settle for anything less than what I deserve. And most importantly, I learned to love myself, to stand up for myself, and to never let anyone take advantage of me again. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.